Hey guys, welcome to Relationship Stories with TaleTime. The first story is titled, My Fiance is Having an Affair with My Best Friend. I exposed both. The story starts like this. I never thought I'd be that guy, the one whose fiance was cheating on him with his best friend. But there I was, just weeks before our wedding day, staring at indisputable evidence that the two people I trusted most in this world had utterly betrayed me. Looking back, I probably should have seen the signs earlier. Jessica and Mike had gotten suspiciously close over the past year as we planned our dream wedding. Lingering hugs, inside jokes, way too much wedding planning time together without me. But I was blinded by my excitement for our future life together, and the fact that they had been best friends since college, long before Jessica and I had even met. It all came crashing down when I went searching for my leather jacket in Jessica's car one night. I knew I had left it in there after moving some wedding decorations. When I opened the door, the jacket was on the floor, and so was Mike's shirt. Suddenly, Jessica's flimsy working late at the office excuses made sense. I felt like throwing up. My first instinct was to confront them both immediately, to demand answers and explanations. But then another idea crossed my mind. One fueled by the white-hot rage burning through my veins. I decided to play along, at least for the time being, to act completely oblivious to the whole sordid affair, because I had a plan to absolve my hurt and humiliation on the biggest day of our lives, our non-refundable $35,000 wedding day. For 2 agonizing weeks leading up to the big day, I grinned and bore it while Jessica and Mike cuddled up during our last hurrah bachelor/et party, while she sweetly kissed me goodnight after their little trysts, while he smirked at me, like he was the one who'd gotten the ultimate prize. I'm usually a terrific actor, but keeping my cool in those final days before the wedding was one of the hardest roles I've ever had to play. When my wedding day finally arrived, Jessica was practically giddy with excitement, texting Mike all morning as her bridesmaids helped her get ready. They continued sharing cloying messages back and forth until it was time for the ceremony. From the look on Mike's face when he watched Jessica walk down the aisle, any doubts I had about their torrid affair vanished completely. This was really happening. I smiled and said my vows through gritted teeth, playing the part of the smitten husband-to-be. Jessica opted to go first during our self-written vows, reading some sappy lines about looking forward to growing old together. I wanted to vomit, but remained stoic as her eyes smoldered in Mike's direction. Then it was my turn at the mic. I took a deep breath and looked out at my friends and family. Poor souls, they had no idea what was about to go down. Jessica, I began, pulling a small notepad from my suit jacket pocket. When you first came into my life, I knew you were the one. Your radiant smile and infectious sense of humor lit up my world like a supernova. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Mike making a mocking, gagging gesture, clearly finding my vows too mushy for his liking. Jessica just beamed up at me, totally oblivious to the storm that was coming. I continued. It felt like the stars had aligned to allow our paths to finally intersect after all this time. We seemed to share every hope, every dream, and stupid, silly interest. I trailed off and flipped the page on my notepad theatrically. But recently, I've realized that you seem to share a separate grating, maddening interest with someone else. I paused for effect and the crowd began murmuring in confusion. Jessica's dopey smile faltered ever so slightly, and Mike stiffened up. Yes, in recent weeks it has become excruciatingly clear that you've developed an intense intimacy with one of my nearest and dearest friends. An intimacy that I've struggled to process, and honestly forgive. I turned to face Mike, whose face had drained of all color. You, Mike, my brother from another mother, my compadre who I admired and respected and housed on my couch for 2 years rent-free when you were getting your life together. Jessica was stunned, looking rapidly between the two of us. Small gasps could be heard rippling through the crowd as everyone began to piece together what was happening. I know this, I said, making a knuckle and rubbing it into my eye socket like I had something caught in there. Because I have seen, with my very own eyes, the evidence of your indiscretion. At those words, Jessica's bridesmaids began audibly expressing their shock, and Mike burst out furiously. Whoa, mate. What the hell are you implying here? You're making a huge scene for nothing. The crowd went silent, hanging on every word. I took a few steps forward until I was toe-to-toe with Mike, staring directly into his stupid, smug face. No, Mike, I am not making a scene, I said slowly and clearly. I am quite simply telling the truth that you and Jessica have been carrying on with an affair behind my back for months now. Mike seemed to shrink 3 inches where he stood. Jessica stood frozen, like a deer caught in the headlights. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see her bridesmaids surrounding her, a few with their hands over their mouths in shock. Need I remind you of the evening 2 weeks ago when I found your shirt on the floor of Jessica's car, kicked off in the heat of passion? Or do you need me to recount the dozens of soft kisses and intimate whispers I've had to witness between my future wife and my supposed best friend? Mike's mouth opened and closed like a gasping fish. I had utterly deflated him with the truth, leaving a shadow of the cocky prick he had been just minutes ago. But I didn't stop there. So please, everybody, feel free to judge the liars who are standing before you on this day of celebration and revelry. Jessica has already told her vows, but clearly they are tarnished by deceit and cowardice. I turned back toward Jessica, who was openly weeping now amid furious whispers from her bridal party. And I'm afraid, my dear, that any vows I had prepared for you today have been rendered meaningless by your reprehensible unfaithfulness. Then, with a look of sweet satisfaction, I tore my small notepad in half, letting the ripped pages flutter to the ground at my feet. So I will make just this one final vow to the both of you. A promise, if you will, shouted for all the world to hear. From this moment until my dying day, I will never attempt to rekindle any form of relationship with either of you ever again. I stepped off the altar and strode quickly down the aisle, leaving chaos in my wake. Gasps, cries, shouts of anger and shock. As I threw open the church doors and exited into the bright sunlight, the blessed sound of Jessica's panicked sobs echoed in my ears. Sweet, sweet revenge. In the days and weeks after the disastrous non-wedding, I braced myself for backlash from Jessica's family. And boy, did it come in full force? Her parents left me dozens of ranting voicemails, essentially calling me a pathological liar and saying I had humiliated and slandered their perfect daughter in front of everyone we knew. Her sister went on a social media rampage, posting one unhinged rant after another about what a psycho piece of trash I was for sabotaging Jessica's big day with wild accusations. At first, it stung to have this vitriol and doubt directed at me from people I had hoped to welcome as my new family. But then my own relatives and closest friends rallied around me in a tidal wave of support. They had been blindsided at the wedding, but as soon as the full truth about Jessica and Mike's affair came out, everyone took my side. My mom fielded most of the angry calls from Jessica's family, steadfastly defending me each time. You can call my son whatever vile names you want, she told them. But at the end of the day, the cold hard facts are that Jessica cheated on him with his best friend. He has photo proof, text proof, and he caught them physically together. So unless you can disprove that, you're just going to have to accept that your golden girl betrayed him in the worst way. Hearing her so forcefully plead my case meant everything. My inner circle of buddies always had my back too. I can't believe how badly those two stabbed you in the back, man. But you dealt with it like a genius, said my best man Dylan. Ripping up those vows in front of everyone? Iconic stuff? They'll never be able to show their faces again without everyone knowing what slimy snakes they are. Dylan was right about the social media chaos. In the days after the aborted wedding, my Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts absolutely blew up as friends and other guests shared videos and pics from the jaw-dropping scene I had caused. Jessica and Mike were ritually dragged through the mud, their reputations shredded to bits as the tawdry details of their affair spread like wildfire. I couldn't help but revel in the online discourse for a few days, reading endlessly satisfying comments, like what a backstabbing snake, cheating WRE, got what she deserved, and ha ha ha, I would divorce her so fast if I was him. Of course, Jessica and Mike both made feeble attempts at public apologies and explanations on their socials, but the damage was well and truly done. Everyone could see right through their crocodile tear-soaked guilt and sad excuses. The overwhelming consensus was that they were selfish, terrible people, and I was completely justified in my actions. The only real downside of the catastrophic wedding day was having to dole out tens of thousands of dollars in non-refundable costs to all the vendors. But after checking my contract scrutiny, it allowed me to recoup a surprising amount for things like the venue, catering, photography, etc. Thanks to my real attention to detail in those contracts, I was able to get back over $25,000 of the original budget. With the logistical loose threads finally tied up a few months later, I was able to begin moving on and savoring my new reality, a lifestyle utterly purged of Jessica and Mike's toxic betrayal and deceit. It took some doing, as I spent weeks painstakingly removing every last vestige of them from my daily life. I boxed up all the old photos, knickknacks, and other mementos from our relationship, and unceremoniously dumped them in a storage locker. I blocked their numbers, emails, and socials so there was no way for them to even attempt reaching out. I even changed my usual hangout spots for a while, just to ensure a total break from any connections to my old life with Jessica and her cheating partner in crime. No more second-guessing my instincts or feeling that nagging pang of suspicion about shady behavior. No more putting up with snide comments or disrespect from the loser who had been my best friend. Most importantly, no more having to watch the woman I once loved continue defiling our relationship and making a mockery of my trust and commitment. Jessica and Mike's sordid actions had been abruptly but decisively expelled from my world, like a spreading cancer cauterized before it could do any further damage. I knew Jessica and Mike's radioactive reputations would also serve as a shield preventing either of them from attempting to slither back into my sphere. Both had been outed as soulless cretins capable of the ultimate betrayal. Any decent human being would immediately be repulsed and steer clear upon hearing of their adulterous depravity. I relished imagining them having to slink away in shame whenever my name was mentioned, or their wedding day humiliation was inevitably brought up. Update: about a year after that whole crazy wedding disaster, I finally felt like I was over the emotional hurdle of Jessica and Mike's betrayal. All the initial anger, embarrassment, and urges for revenge had faded away. I was back to just focusing on living my best life without any toxic distractions. My friends and family were so proud of how I carried myself with dignity throughout the whole thing. My mom especially, having seen what a cesspool of lies and deception I had extricated myself from with Jessica and that scumbag Mike. "You really showed incredible strength of character, Han," she told me over dinner one night. "A weaker person might have just suppressed it all and ended up in an utterly miserable marriage." I knew she was right. As much as the non-wedding incident was a punch to the gut at the time, I had saved myself from being trapped in a lifestyle of eroding trust and suspicious paranoia. Who knows if Jessica's cheating would have continued, or if I'd always be looking over my shoulder, wondering what else she was up to with Mike or other guys. No thank you. There was a little social weirdness at first when I started dating again about 6 months later. I went out with a few friends of friends who had obviously heard about my wedding day outburst, but I simply owned it with a smile, gave them the abbreviated version of events, and they could instantly see I had acted reasonably in the face of Jessica's scummy deception. After that, it was case closed and we could just focus on having fun. Speaking of fun, that's exactly what my life became once I hit the 1-year mark. Completely free of any burdensome emotional anchors, I could just live for myself and go after exactly what I wanted in a partner and lifestyle. Whether that was traveling spontaneously, picking up new hobbies like rock climbing, or just being 100% selfish with my time and energy, I didn't have to compromise for anyone, and it was glorious. There was definitely a sense of relief knowing I had gotten out of that mess with Jessica and Mike relatively unscathed too. Besides just the humiliation of the wedding day incident itself, I didn't have any legal consequences, financial burdens, or long-term fallout to worry about. I had already taken the high road by not stooping to their level after exposing them as cheating snakes. No streaking through her workplace or slashing their tires, even though the thoughts definitely crossed my mind in those first few angry weeks. I also heard through the grapevine that Jessica and Mike didn't last much longer as a couple after the big blow-up. Apparently the intense scrutiny from having their tawdry secret dragged into the public eye was just way too much pressure. They had broken up within a few months amid constant accusations of being soulmates or meant for each other. No surprise there, the foundation of deceit their whole relationship was built on could never sustain anything real. The updates stopped coming after Jessica moved cities to start over somewhere new. Good riddance as far as I was concerned. I wished them nothing but unhappiness and continued failure in their romantic pursuits. Maybe one day they'd experience the hurt and humiliation they put me through when the shoes were finally on the other foot. As for me, I eventually did meet someone new that knocked me off my feet. Someone kind, loyal, and trustworthy to the core. Her name's Rachel, and from the moment I met her, I knew this was someone I could pour my entire heart into without an ounce of trepidation. We've been together 2 years now, and I constantly have to pinch myself over how drama-free and easygoing our relationship is. Looks like karma has finally balanced itself out. So I guess the biggest lesson I took away from my experience is to never, ever tolerate a cheater. Whether it's a romantic partner, friend, family member, literally anyone, cut them out of your life completely and immediately. Don't make excuses or convince yourself you can get past it. The breach of trust is just too catastrophic to overcome. And always trust your instincts if you suspect shady behavior. I ignored way too many red flags with Jessica in the blur of planning our wedding. That'll never happen again. At the end of the day, I'm just thankful I stood up for myself when the truth finally came out on what should have been the happiest day of my life. I refused to go through with getting hitched to a liar who never deserved me in the first place. I may have caused a huge public scene, but by sticking to my principles and values, I came out the ultimate winner in the long run. Sometimes you just have to burn it all down in order to clear the way for rebuilding something infinitely better. 5 years later, update to the story. It's crazy how life can take such unexpected turns sometimes. If you had told me 5 years ago where I'd be today, I never would have believed it. A couple months back, I actually ran into an old friend from my college days at the grocery store. She gave me the stunned look people usually get when they haven't seen me in forever. Then she hit me with some pretty heavy news. Jessica, my cheating ex-fiance from the infamous wedding disaster, had passed away from a drug overdose. My friend explained how Jessica had fallen into a deep, dark spiral after our bitter split. The humiliation and public shaming from having her affair with Mike dragged into the spotlight totally broke her. She started gambling and using drugs as a means to cope with the depression and regret. From there, it was a rapid downward spiral over the next couple of years into full-blown addiction to harder substances. By the time my friend spotted her downtown one night looking rail thin and strung out, Jessica was homeless and panhandling for her next fix. A few weeks after that chance encounter, the inevitable tragedy occurred. Jessica OD'd alone in some cheap motel room at just 32 years old. Such a sad, senseless ending to someone who once seemed to have it all. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a small pang of remorse upon hearing that news. No matter how terribly she wronged me years ago, I never would have wished actual death upon Jessica. Part of me will always look back and wonder what could have been if she had just been faithful and honest with me. Would a happy marriage and family have gotten her on a better path? In the end though, I know her demise was the result of her own poor life choices and moral failings. As my buddy Dylan bluntly put it, she severely underestimated just how good of a dude she had, and torpedoed her whole future by screwing around with that loser Mike. Can't say I feel too bad she OD'd, after all the needless drama she caused. As harsh as that take is, I can't say I disagree with the general premise. Jessica made her bed by engaging in such selfish deceit and cruelty towards me, so she had to lie in it when all of the repercussions finally caught up with her. I think I stopped feeling any real sense of guilt or sadness about a week after processing the news. Mostly I just feel relief that her toxic energy has been permanently exorcised from my world. Because in stark contrast to Jessica's tragic demise, my life today is outrageously amazing in almost every sense. After we reconnected a couple years ago, Rachel and I got hitched in a beautiful, drama-free wedding surrounded by loved ones who actually respect the sanctity of marriage vows. We're currently expecting our first child together, a baby girl due in August who I cannot wait to meet. Work has been extremely rewarding and lucrative. I earned a huge promotion last year to senior VP at my corporate finance firm. We just moved into my dream house, a gorgeous 5-bedroom out in the suburbs with a deck and huge backyard for the kids to run around. I even picked up golf again, playing twice a week with a group of guys from the office. So while her unexpected death does admittedly close that chapter in a grim way, it's just another reminder of why I'm thankful every day to have such a blessed existence today. Now guys, I'll share an interesting comment about the story. Damn, reading this story just gave me so many visceral flashbacks to my own experiences with being cheated on. The lying, the suspicion, the confrontation, the anger, the author captured all those raw emotions perfectly. It's honestly scary how realistic and relatable the whole narrative felt. I never went through anything as dramatic as calling out the affair at my own wedding or anything, but I did have a similar experience of discovering my ex was stepping out on me with one of my supposed brothers from college. Worst freaking feeling in the world when the truth crystallizes before your eyes like that. For me, it started with little things I noticed but didn't want to read too much into at first, like how she would get weirdly cagey whenever I asked about hanging out with this dude Kyle, or the constant texting between them, going silent when I walked in the room. That kind of sketchy stuff. I think part of me knew something was up on some level. But you want to believe the person you love and your friend wouldn't stab you in the back like that, you know? The final nail in the coffin was stumbling across a couple snapping intimate pics and vids on her laptop one day. Just absolutely gut-wrenching stuff. Obvious evidence they were hooking up. Still gets my blood boiling thinking about the betrayal from both of them. This chick I was ready to spend my life with, and my homeboy who I'd known since freshman year of college. In the moment, I think I went into shock more than anything else. I just kind of robotically gathered up my stuff and got the hell out of our apartment without saying a word to her. Honestly, I'm kind of impressed I didn't completely lose my mind and rage out right then and there. Similar to the guy's story, I spent the next few days just giving them both the most icy silent treatment ever, ignoring her calls and texts, telling mutual friends I was done with both of their snaky asses. That was pretty much me serving my own form of revenge, I guess. Drawing out the tension and mystery, not giving them any satisfaction of understanding why I had ghosted so abruptly. Eventually, I did break the silence by sending them this massive FCKU text just completely dismantling their characters. Calling her every horrible derogatory name under the sun, telling Kyle he was a revolting excuse for a friend and human being, all that vitriol. Definitely some of my finest work in terms of peak disrespect and belittling haha. My petty vengeance was leaking their scandalous affair to our whole friend circle too. You best believe I made sure to air out all their dirty laundry by forwarding those raunchy pics and vids to our groups. Ensured everybody knew exactly what worthless pieces of crap they both were. For a while after that, there was still so much white-hot anger fueling me. Like this dude in the story, it was immensely satisfying to have them be universally ostracized by our whole crew. Watching her get roasted on social media and shamed to oblivion. Having zero qualms about him getting fired after I sent the evidence to his work colleagues. And you're damn right, I took great pleasure in seeing their romance destined for failure too. Because it was built on such a toxic, slimy foundation of lies and disloyalty instead of anything genuine. I think they only lasted like 8 months or so before it all combusted spectacularly. Gee, you reap what you sow, huh? Looking back, as unhinged as I was during that period of seething outrage, I have zero regrets about how I handled the situation. They played so stupidly and burned me in one of the cruelest ways imaginable, so they absolutely deserve to have their reputations and images dragged through the mud. In fact, I kind of see myself as the true winner in a weird way, similar to how this storyteller was reflecting on dodging a bullet and removing toxicity from his sphere. Sure, I had to endure that gnarly disrespect and heartbreak in the moment, but in the long run, Their selfishness and moral bankruptcy only sabotage themselves while liberating me from that dysfunction. Another person wrote, sounds like you've been through some serious BS with cheating and betrayal too. I don't envy having to go through the emotional turmoil of discovering your partner's unfaithfulness like that. But you're so right that going scorched earth and making them face consequences is really the only way to handle it. They need to be held fully accountable instead of letting them off easy. I'm glad to hear you have no regrets about how you responded, even if it got a little unhinged at times. When you've been so deeply disrespected, lashing out is just a natural reaction. I probably would have done the same, airing all their dirty laundry, trying to nuke their reputations. They made the choice to be awful human beings, so they can't be surprised when it comes back to bite them. It does seem like in the end, you were the true winner who dodged a bullet with those two snakes. Watching their attempted romance predictably implode must have been pretty vindicating. Like you could see firsthand how their whole foundation was rotten from the lies and deception. No way a relationship like that could ever last long-term when built on such a slippery slope. I'm really happy to hear you're in an amazing, stable relationship now with someone you can actually trust. That's the most important thing. Being able to leave that toxic situation behind and open yourself up to a loyal, committed partnership built on mutual respect. Someone who straightforwardly loves and appreciates you for who you are without any of the shadiness. Those kinds of experiences really make you appreciate finding that soulmate level connection too. When you've been burned by cheating before, you become so much more aware of all the little red flags to watch out for. But it also makes you cherish the right person that much more when you can be vulnerable and know they'll never jeopardize that bond you've built. And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. If you enjoy my content, please like the video, comment with some clock emojis to show your support, and subscribe if you have not done so already. Thanks a lot, and I will see you again tomorrow.